Welcome to Thoughts of War. My name is Bart. In this particular video, I'm going to cover the Edict of Thessalonica. This is part of my ongoing series on early Christianity and nonviolence. I do ask that you go back and watch these in order. For the most part, I've been making these in chronological order. So we are covering the Edict of Thessalonica. Now, we've already covered the Edict of Milan. The Edict of Milan made it to where Christians were no longer persecuted. Now, the Edict of Thessalonica is recorded in the Codex Theodosianus. This was decreed in 380. So I think the Edict of Milan was around 313. And so this tells you it wasn't that many years ago that Christianity just became where it was no longer persecuted. So this is the Edict to the people of Constantinople. So here we go. This is for the Roman Empire. And notice it says, it is our desire that all the various nations which are subject to our clemency and moderation should continue to profess that religion which was delivered to the Romans by the divine apostle Peter, as it has been preserved by faithful tradition and which is now professed by the Pontiff Damasus and by Peter, Bishop of Alexandria, a man of apostolic holiness. So now the emperors are saying you're free to believe whoever you wish to believe in the Edict of Milan. Now the emperor is saying we need to follow the religion that's handed down to us, and the two men we're going to point to is pretty much the bishop of Rome and the bishop of Alexandria. So just kind of these two main men. We know they have connections going all the way back to the apostles. So we're going to follow the teachings of these men. And it says, according to the apostolic teaching and the doctrine of the gospel, let us believe in the one deity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in equal majesty and in Holy Trinity. Well, where do they start getting this language from? Well, it goes back to the First Council of Nicaea. So this becomes, in a sense, Nicene Christianity, which pretty much, if you're doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Orthodox, even Protestants, everybody would agree with the theology that came from that Council of Nicaea. However, this is what's changed. It says, we authorize the followers of this law to assume the title of Catholic Christians. So now the government's deciding if you're choosing to follow the Nicene Creed, then you are part of the official church. That is, you're allowed to call yourself part of the official church. However, everybody else, as for the others, since in our judgment they are foolish madmen, we decree that they shall be branded with the, ignominious name of heretics, and shall not presume to give to their conventicles, the name of churches. So you cannot call the place you're meeting a church if you're not following the official teachings. It says they will suffer in the first place the chastisement of divine condemnation. So even early Christianities will say, hey, if you're going to choose the path of apostasy, you're going to be heretical in your beliefs, then you're going to have divine punishment. But what's changed is this last phrase. Not just, you're telling somebody, hey, God's going to reject you and you're going to go to hell and you cannot be part of our fellowship at our local church. Now it says, and in the second, the punishment of our authority, which in accordance with the will of heaven, we shall decide to inflict. Notice how that's changed now. Now Christians are inflicting punishment. And so, just to summarize this up, the government now decides this is official church doctrine. And anybody who does not go along with that is going to be punished. So now you have the government, if it decides the correct church doctrine, hey, you're good. But what if the church doctrine doesn't necessarily agree with the government? What do you think is going to happen? And so now you see Christians moving from the minority to the majority. I mentioned that in the previous video. But the question I have is what happened to Isaiah chapter 2 and Micah chapter 4 prophecies? What happened to all these early church writers that said, hey, we know Christ is the Messiah because look at his followers? Well, now his followers starting to look no different than the rest of the world. If you've got someone who's a heretic and you're having them put in prison and tortured, how is that different from what they were doing to the Christians before? And again, what about the apostolic tradition in the Canon 12 of the Council of Nicaea? Lactantius, we just covered him. Less than 100 years ago, he wrote that you cannot defend religion with bloodshed and torture, but yet here is now an edict coming from the emperors that you can enforce religion that way. So this is pretty sad because now, as I mentioned, Isaiah 2 and Micah 4, those prophecies are no longer true in a sense. Now the followers of Christ are no longer taking their swords and plowshares. Now they're picking up their swords and they're enforcing their religion. And so, Marcellus, there's no reason to lay down your arms if you're in the military, because now Christianity and the military go hand in hand. And also the apostolic tradition, the ban on even being a soldier is no longer a thing anymore. Now you can be a soldier and you can follow Christ, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so Lactantius, not using torture to move people towards your position. Well, now you can do that. And even the Council of Nicaea, they no longer view going back into the military service after joining Christ as like a dog returning to its vomit. Now they say it's okay to do all of those things. So now you can see all those things that we've already discussed in our other videos, they're starting to become null and void. But the question is, there's something missing. We have to have the theology. Somebody had to come along and start thinking about, how can I justify this? I know these early Christians taught this for centuries, but now how do I integrate what's being taught now? How can we change, in a sense, our theology to allow these things? And so there's going to be one last video in our series, and we're going to cover St. Augustine of Hippo. And so stay tuned for that. I'm just going to do one video on him, and this early church series really is, boy, I'm just kind of skimming over the surface on so many of these things. But I'm hopefully to add to this series as time goes on. But this is just to get a foundation going out there.